As I was working on this week's main presentation, I was struck by some of the inconsistencies in the readings, and also by some of the irony, like an all-loving God who was helping Joshua's army slaughter the Amalekites at the end of a sword. We see that sort of irony all throughout the Bible, so most people aren't surprised by it in their religious history book. But that sort of religious irony isn't just relegated to history. There are plenty of ironic situations that Christians are in the middle of today. Welcome to another bonus edition of the MTB Podcast, a segment of the weekly episode that I call Afterthoughts. This is my favorite part of these weekly presentations because it gives me a chance to dig a little deeper into something that came up during the main presentation. So let me start with a simple question. If your school chooses to take public money, should it be allowed to exclude certain families from those publicly funded seats? That's the heart of a case out of Colorado, where the state's universal preschool program requires schools who accept state funding to follow basic non-discrimination rules. Some Catholic preschools challenged that requirement, and a federal appeals court said the rule stands for those schools that accept public funding through this program. In this episode, I'll try to explain what that means in plain language, explore why some Christian institutions are bringing lawsuits like this, and then make the case for a principle we should all be able to live with. Public funds mean public rules and equal access. So get settled in, because it's time for another episode of Afterthoughts. So here's the case in a nutshell. Colorado offers a state-funded preschool program. To participate, schools agree to non-discrimination, meaning they can't turn away LGBTQ plus families from the publicly funded seats. 2 Catholic preschools sued the state, arguing that the rule violated their religious freedom. The appeals court said there wasn't proof that the non-discrimination rule, as applied to publicly funded seats, infringed religious freedom. So, translation, if you voluntarily enter a public program and receive public dollars for those seats, you play by the public's inclusivity rules. If you don't want those conditions, you can decline the funds. No one is being forced to change doctrine. This is about how we treat families when we accept money meant to serve the entire public. And that distinction, private belief versus public benefit, is exactly where the arguments get tangled. So let's walk through what the plaintiffs say and why those claims just don't hold up. First, you'll hear religious freedom means we can exclude. Okay, the logic is our doctrine says certain family structures are sinful. Therefore, we must be free to deny enrollment. Second, they say neutral rules target us. Because the rule conflicts with their beliefs, they argue it's anti-religious in practice. Third, parental choice requires our terms. If families want a religious option with public help, the school should be free to set religious eligibility standards. And their fourth claim is that the state is imposing secular values on us. They frame non-discrimination as ideology rather than as a civic baseline. Now, to many people, well, those claims sound solid until you hold them up to the light of shared civic life. So let me respond point by point, clearly, and I hope fairly. Okay, so their first claim is religious freedom means we can exclude. Well, that is false. because public money equals public obligations. Religious freedom protects worship, teaching, and internal faith life. But when an institution enters a public program to receive taxpayer funds, it steps into a civic compact. Funds meant for the public must serve the public without any unfair exclusions. Participation in this program is voluntary. The conditions of the program are not voluntary. That isn't an attack on faith. It's simply accountability for how public dollars are used. Okay, so their second claim is neutral rules target us. That is not just false, it's ridiculous. Neutral and generally applicable rules, by their very nature, don't target anyone. They're general. Colorado's non-discrimination rule applies to all providers in the program, religious and non-religious alike, and it protects multiple groups. A rule that says you can't exclude LGBTQ plus families from publicly funded seats is not singling out religion, it's protecting residents. The fact that a neutral rule conflicts with one group's doctrine doesn't convert that into persecution. It's the state simply ensuring equal access to a public benefit. Okay, so their third claim is that, parental choice requires our terms. That is false and misleading. Parental choice isn't a license to exclude certain parents. Choice empowers families to pick among options. It does not empower schools to redefine which families count when public funds are involved. If your school wants to set religious terms for enrollment, it can operate private seats with private funds. The moment you accept public dollars, the choice belongs to eligible families, not to religious gatekeepers. And the fourth claim we discussed is that the state is imposing secular values on us. That too is false. Non-discrimination is a civic baseline. It's not a rival creed. This isn't the state evangelizing a secular faith. It's the state saying, when the public pays, every qualifying member of the public has a fair shot at the benefit. No stigma, no backdoor exclusions. Now, all of that is the legal and civic side. But for many Christians, there's also a values question. What does this posture say about the faith they want to model? If you claim to follow the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, radical welcome, care for the marginalized, let the children come to me, then suing to exclude certain children from publicly funded education doesn't sit well with that ethic. You can maintain your teachings inside your community and still choose to serve all families fairly when you step into a public role. From a humanistic perspective, this is very straightforward. Decent societies widen access, especially for little kids who are at the doorway of a school, when belonging and stability matter the most. So why keep bringing lawsuits like this? What's the play? What's the real end game here? Well, part of it is strategic litigation, testing the courts to carve out religious exemptions that follow public dollars into public programs. Part is just culture war signaling, cases that mobilize donors and voters by telling a story of persecution. And part of it is just policy asymmetry, In one breath, some groups claim government is forcing values through equal access rules. In the next breath, they push Ten Commandment mandates, Christian nationalist curricula, and book bans in public schools, explicit attempts to impose their views in civic spaces. The contradiction is impossible to miss. Okay, let's pull this down to ground level. What are the real world stakes for families, kids, and the preschool providers? Well, for families, exclusion means fewer available seats, extra costs, maybe longer drives, and a message that their family is unwelcome. For kids, it's that horrible feeling of being othered before they even begin kindergarten. This is a harm that lingers, and the Catholics who brought these lawsuits should be ashamed. If they're correct and there is an afterlife, they're going to be smoking turds in purgatory for a few thousand years before they'll have any shot at even seeing the pearly gates. For preschool providers, the appeals court has sent a clear message. If you take public money, you serve the public fairly. That line keeps the system consistent, transparent, and just. All right, if this resonates, you might be wondering what ordinary folks can do practically without burning out. First, memorize and share something like this one-liner. Public funds mean public rules and equal access. Public funds mean public rules and equal access. Keep it calm and repeatable. Second, show up locally. Provider meetings, school boards, community forums. Ask how non-discrimination is being implemented in publicly funded programs. Then support providers who are doing it well. Third, document and report. If public funds are being used by organizations that then exclude certain people, help families find the right state contacts or civil rights offices. And last but certainly not least, protect your own stamina. Work with others. Rotate tasks. And aim for small, repeatable wins. That connects right back to our question from the main presentation for the week about noticing discouragement and stepping out of the doom loop with just one small concrete action. So here's the takeaway. If the public pays, the public is served. All of the public. We can honor private beliefs and still protect public belonging. Choosing both is how we operate in good faith with our neighbors, how we ensure our kids' futures, and how we promote the best version of a pluralistic society. No miracles needed, just clear rules, shared values, and people who are willing to hold one another up while we do the right thing together. All right, thanks for joining me for this episode of Afterthoughts. If you want to keep up on everything I'm doing, please head over to thecodaproject.com and subscribe to my newsletter. You'll get notifications whenever I publish anything, and I'll also keep you updated on the weekly live streams of Mythologizing the Bible. Also, if you subscribe for free over at the Coda Project, you'll start receiving my resource called The Weekly Compass. This is a brief guide on a single core value. Think of it as a mini lesson plan for personal growth. It's perfect for families, students, and adults because I include discussion questions designed for each age group. Each weekly issue centers on a short reflection about the week's value, followed by discussion questions that are tailored for different age groups, from kids to college students to adults, and then a simple take action step, like a small challenge or exercise you can do to put that value into practice. Especially for families, it's designed to be an easy way to ensure that at least once a week, you're making time to talk about morality, ethics, and core values. So if you're interested, go subscribe for free at thecodaproject.com. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, remember to question everything, keep what's good, and live what matters.